Welcome to Uncover the Human, where every conversation revolves around enhancing all the connections in our lives.
Whether that's with our families, co-workers, or even ourselves.
When we can be our authentic selves, magic happens.
This is Cristina Amigoni.
And this is Alex Cullimore.
Let's dive in.
Welcome back to this episode of Uncover the Human. Today, Cristina and I are joined by our guest, Connie Warden. Welcome to the podcast, Connie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you on. So if you wouldn't mind giving us a little background, what's your story so everybody listening knows? What brought you here?
Brought me here. So I have been an acupuncturist and a yoga nut, teach lots of yoga, meditation, and how I ended up here with you was because of a book I wrote. Because I was a real jerk on the road. And I was so astonished at my behavior, especially with what I do, and I thought, wow, I need to change something about this. Why can't I use my mindfulness, my kindfulness that I try to, my mindful yoga practices? And then I realized this was pretty much a universal experience. And so I set out for about 3 years using my practices to be a more mindful, kindful driver. And so I decided to write a book on it.
I love the idea and I love the inspiration too, because it's very relatable.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
And as I was writing it and having editors look at it, they would all say, oh, you know what you said about red lights? That really helped me the other day. Because I was going to my baseball game and there was all these red lights. And I was like, oh, you're using the stuff I'm writing about? And so it really helped me actually finish the book because people were getting some good results from, it was just little jewels that each person kind of picks out. And yeah.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about the book. What's the title? What's it about?
So the title, I always thought it was going to be How to Be a More Mindful, Kindful Driver. But I did have a book coach. And so she says, well, let's just brainstorm. And so we ended up with it being called Speeding to Compassion. And the tagline is Life Lessons and Humor to the High Road. So that kind of covers it. Lots of humor in it.
Great title.
Speeding to Compassion. It is when I'm speeding that I'm mostly yelling at the other drivers. So that's
Yes.
that's a good time.
We're wanting
Where
to
compassion doesn't gets left behind as you speed.
Yes, yeah. So an interesting thing just happened. My daughter and I were coming back from the store, and we were at a T intersection. We were going to take a right. There was a car in front of us who apparently couldn't take a right because there was a mom and a son biking across the street. And they were going rather slow because they was 7 years old. Well, he apparently said something because he wanted them to hurry up. She called him a jerk, probably something more than that. He didn't like it. So he took a right and then screamed and did a 360 and went back. And my daughter's at the wheel and she says, that woman's not safe. So she did a 360 and we followed this guy who got out in his car on the opposite side of the road to attack this woman. And she must have told her son to go ahead. And so he went up ahead and hid behind a tree. And this guy got out as fast as he could and ran to this woman. And she thought she was going to get hit. So she gets off her bike and he picks her bike up like he's going to throw it. And now, I know. And so we said, hey, we're recording you. And which we were. And then he finally left and told us to mind our own business, which, our business really is to keep women safe. And so my daughter called the sheriff. We got the lady's name And they ended up calling her. She decided she was not going to press charges, but the sheriff went to his house, and he said, you're pretty lucky you're not getting charges, and he felt really bad, and hopefully scared him enough not to be such a jerk.
Yeah, no kidding.
I know. And then I thought about it, and I'm thinking to my daughter, gosh, you should have offered this book to the sheriff's department.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So,
As well as every driver out there.
Yeah, you got to give that to all the traffic court judges. They can just hand that out as part
Yeah.
of the
As part of the rehab.
process.
there, I'm going to put that down as my marketing strategy.
Yes.
I really like the idea and the entire inspiration for the book, because not only is it very relatable to sometimes be a lot shorter than we would be in normal life when behind the wheel, but I had a friend of mine who would always say everybody's trying to do the best they can most of the time, except when they're behind the wheel. And he would always kind of give that little caveat that, like, we're all doing our best, but in this one crazy anonymous instance, we're all a little bit suddenly feral.
Yeah, and I like that. Suddenly feral. And if you can learn techniques while you're driving because the only person you hurt doing this stuff in their car is yourself. And that's the whole point of my book, is you're just giving yourself toxins. And I liken it to yelling at the TV at the referees. You're not going to change anything, and you're just putting, yeah. So
That's very true.
yeah,
So it's always interesting in the process of writing a book how much we end up learning about the topic that we are writing. What were some of your discoveries as you went through the process of making the book?
one is why people feel they can do that in a car, because they feel anonymous, and they're like got this tin around them, this metal, like it's supposed to prevent them from having consequences. So that was interesting. And I think the biggest thing I learned, because I knew I wasn't going to publish a book until I learned how to deal with anger without bypassing it. Right? So without stuffing it and bypassing it, only to have it come out somewhere else. And that's the thing that I really needed to learn how to do. Because I could be really good at going, okay, I'm all right. I don't care that these people are being jerks. Okay, I'm going to be late to pick up my daughter from the airport. And, there's a whole story. And she was coming in from Dubai, and I knew she would be tired. And then I once I got home, I blew up. Because the whole time I'm pretending to myself that everything's okay, when it was frustrating.
Yeah.
And so I talk about that in the book, about ways that I did in order not to just have that anger come out later.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true, because when you were talking about the horrific story, the poor woman on the bike with her son, all I could think about was like, what is that driver that ended up chasing her and attacking her? What was he dealing with? Like, what was he had been repressing that had nothing to do with a woman and her son crossing the street on a bike?
Yeah. And it wasn't like he was nice to her and she was a jerk to him.
Yeah.
He was a jerk. Yeah. So, yeah, again, something else that was underneath that. And that was the tip of the iceberg, and he exploded.
Exactly. Yep.
That's a good point too. It's not just about like, hey, we'll just stuff this down and I'll just remind myself not to be angry in the car or something. There's just what are the stories we're telling ourselves? Why do we have so much that we are suddenly releasing, and hopefully not in nearly as scary a way as that, but what are we doing, and how do we just process that instead of suppressing it, instead of just bottling it away or ignoring it?
Right. And so one of the things I talk about is kind of coming up with a song that's, just make up a stupid song about the stupid driver who is, and in fact, my husband gave his hairdresser this book. And again, everyone will come back with saying, oh, I thought about you when I was driving and this situation happened. And she was getting really upset, and she decided to turn an Eagles song up and just sing it at the top of her voice, and to just to not go down that lane of frustration.
It's a good idea. Yes. I do have to say, I also think of you every time I have those moments where I am, trying to turn left or something, and there's some driver taking their sweet time, turning right or going straight. My instinct is to, say what I usually say. It's it's a right turn. It's not brain surgery. And then as soon as those thoughts come out, I'm like, okay, think of Connie.
Yeah. And hopefully it's about, this isn't hurting them. I like to say, what shade of green are you looking for? In the book, I talk about the stories we make up, because we do this in real life. In anything that we don't know, we come up with a story, and whether it's true or not. And so, I talk about in the book about, make up a story that okay, they're turning slow because they have plants. When you go and get a plant, you snuggle it in, but if you go too fast around a corner, it's going to fall anyway. So you got to go slow. And so that's a better story I can make up in my head. And, so making up different stories, and then finally just not making up any story. And just going,
Yes. And just not even noticing.
Or just going, wow, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the psychological phenomenon called the fundamental attribution error, where we assume when somebody cuts us off in traffic, it's because they are actually a bad person. To their core, they're not a good person. They've made bad decisions. And then when we accidentally cut somebody off, we're I'm so sorry, I was in a hurry. I have this. Here's all the things that happened to me. Here's what, I wouldn't usually do this. This isn't me. Whatever it is, we have all the ready-made understanding of why we are not actually just a bad person, but the person who cuts us off, they actually are. And we make this immediate attribution error that this is some fundamental piece of them that can't be changed. Whereas for ourselves, we understand there's more compassion and there's more space, because we know we have plants. We know we have something some reason that we did this, and we wouldn't have normally, or we happen to be really distracted today. That was a bad move on our part, but we wouldn't usually do that. And whatever excuse we have or reason we have, and if we can start to flip the script a little bit and start to think, hey, maybe that person's just having a bad day. Maybe that person's just having an off moment. Maybe it was just a mistake. It doesn't mean that it's all it's all horrible and they are a terrible person who's wronged us.
Yeah, and I think we all have some old beliefs, and my mom really taught us not to be selfish, and that was also that culture that time. Women shouldn't be wanting things, and not being selfish was a really big deal. And so when I see somebody, I'm like, well, there must be a selfish human being, because they're wanting everybody else to move for them or whatever. And so that, for me, I go right to that, because it's what I learned. And so I think everybody has something where they can break up something that's not a good human being there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Or there's the stereotypical grouping of oh, that must be quote unquote a woman. So and so driver, and this group, that group, whatever. And usually when I hear that and I'm on the passenger, I actually make it a point to point out, well, I actually was a white man. Just let's clear the air that it's not by group. It's not a gender thing. It's not an ethnic thing. It's not any of that. It's a personal choice.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they would come up with that.
Yes.
And as we're talking about it, because I keep thinking about how much of our humanity we don't like. about ourselves. And I talk a lot about that because after I did this incident, and I didn't want to beat myself up too much. Because I've spent lots of years in therapy, and we have this inner critic, and how to not succumb to that was a big trick, and it still is. It still can be. And like I think you were referring to that, Alex, about how we it it's the self compassion about that I wanted to bring out. That yes, we can also be that jerk. Mostly when I see somebody do something, I could probably go, yeah, I think I've done that. Um,
Yeah, that's very true. I just read I think it was just like a quick post on Instagram about renaming the inner critic to calling it like the inner jerk or worse. And and it could be also calling it something else, like naming it so that it becomes like, oh, okay, like that's actually not all of me. So let's figure out what's happening there.
yeah, and to have some grace for ourselves,
Yes. Yeah.
and then we can give that grace to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the huge trick that is hard to learn and hard to accept is really when we get mad at other people, it's some reflection of something we're judging in ourselves, some kind of inadequacy we feel or something that we have. And both your idea, Christina, of people lumping them by either ethnicity or gender or something, and Connie, you talking about, I immediately thought this was like a selfish person. Like maybe we just have kind of an automatic buckets where we're like, we can blame X. We can blame
Yes.
some feature of this person, and when we allow for that, and it's something that we just create as some kind of shortcut, some kind of dumping ground, and it inevitably is just a shortcutting any kind of understanding or just disembodying that portion of us we are not being compassionate to, or something that we do find frustrating that inevitably we are also guilty of, but we've done such a unconscious job of trying to mask as somebody else, some other attribute of them, something that we aren't a part of, even though it's always some reflection of something in ourselves. And we see this all the time in leadership as well. We see people who are like, oh, my teams aren't doing this, my teams aren't doing that. And when you follow the leader long enough, you're like, you're not doing that. You don't do those things that you say. They are
Same things
reflecting
frustrate
very
you.
accurately your behavior. And if we can start to see the frustrations in life as a mirror, we start to. It's hard. It can ignite that inner critic that we're trying to ignore by putting it on somebody else. But it is almost always, I find, the case that there is some part of us that we are blaming or avoiding.
And that's really a tough thing for people to go, oh, yeah, I did that. I am doing this. And because nobody likes that feeling. But we have to be okay with that, right? We have to be okay. Every time I tell that story about how this book began, I wince a little bit. I mean, it's not my favorite thing, but meaning I'm uncomfortable that I have to explain why I was such a jerk, and or explain that I did. Um, and I think if that's the biggest thing people can come away with is that it's okay to go, I was wrong.
Yeah.
That's not really
And I
who.
can do better.
And yes, yes,
It's what I did, it's not who I am. Unless we keep repeating it and we're unconsciously repeating it and we don't really take the time to self-reflect and do the work and figure out, like, okay, is this, is it habitual enough that it's how I show up all the time? Or is it something that like, oh, I made a mistake and next time I'm going to do better and I'm going to stumble, but I'm going to keep trying.
yes, yes. And I think until we die, we're going to probably come up against some of those things.
We're going to
It
stumble.
just gets more subtle, right? It just kind of gets more
Yes.
subtle. And yeah. So, which is, I think, how you came up with your podcast about the the uncommon or the uncommon human, the person who's willing to work at it.
Yeah.
And it does. It's amazing how it's hard to immediately embrace that. It's hard to immediately be like, "Oh, I was wrong." Like you're saying, nobody wants to immediately think, "Oh, I was wrong about this." But to your point, Christina, there's some freedom in that. Once we can admit that, and once we can admit, "Hey, I can do better," or "Hey, here's something I would like to change." It's no longer a game of trying to avoid the blame. It's a game of figuring out who we really want to be and how we want to improve. And there's so much more opportunity in that. But we do have to first dive into our own vulnerability of admitting we were not the perfect person we'd love to have been, that this isn't what we wanted to do, and that we did make a mistake. And I think it's really especially brave that you have that story that you wince at every time, Connie, when you to start the book, because that's the kind of vulnerability that allows people to feel seen and allows them to let go of their own blame in this. So we are all guilty of some amount of yelling in the car or some amount of frustration. And we all have some wince when we look back at those things, but it gives the permission to be like, yeah, we have this, and here's what we can do better. It becomes an opportunity, not just an opportunity for blame, but an opportunity for growth.
Yes. And that is life being a teacher, right? It's about, and that's why until we, stop breathing, we are going to have things that will teach us. And I like to call it, turning the poison into medicine. And there's always going to be something there. And if, you've both taken vacations with family, I'm sure there was some medicine there. I mean, there wasn't that vacation.
I was pretty proud about the fact that I had only one major meltdown.
Yay! Yeah.
I know. I expected more.
Yeah. Because you're also trying to teach your children, right?
Yes.
That they have to admit to their mistakes, and that takes time, patience. I didn't grow up with parents saying, "Oh, it's okay, you made a mistake. What do you want to do? How do you want to change it next time?" It was just, you're guilty. And
shame and guilt. Shame and guilt piling up.
Here's your punishment.
Exactly. It's like those, you know how you measure how tall you get? And then they're on the wall permanently until you move out of that house. Yeah, it's the shame and guilt, but they're not on the wall. They're like in our souls, and so they're constantly there. It's like, yep, another tick. Yep, another tick.
Yes, yeah. So I actually say it's probably a good time to live because we're really seeing through all that, and. I think all parents will look back and say, I didn't do the best job here. I, wish I would have done this more, even as much as we try. And so there's another place that we could beat ourselves up. But again, it's being human. No.
As frustrating as that is sometimes.
Right.
As much as it would be nice to be perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole idea of perfection is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, and especially as parents, like I find myself actually consciously making an effort to apologize as much as I can. And,
yes.
To my kids, it's like, you're going to hear my apologies daily, because daily I'm going to do something that then once it's done, I'm like, nope, that did not turn out the way I actually intended.
Yeah, because then they can hear you say it, then that becomes part of their lives. And what a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So how do you find the compassion that you have found by using the driving experience? How do we take that into, non-driving times of our lives?
Yeah. There are so many ways I have used that. I have a sister who is going through a divorce, and it's not good. It's been pretty mean and mean-spirited, and I still can look at her ex-husband and go, he's still a human being. Yeah, they both done stuff that I think in a year they will maybe look back at and go, so just even that, because he could be a really easy person to hate, because some of the damage I feel is being done to his kids. Yeah.
a good example.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's the same idea of all the stories that we tell. We can give a different type of grace. It's just harder and harder in some situations that are particularly personal to us. But I think that's why I really like the idea of practicing this in the car, since it is such a place of anonymity where we just like let whatever fly. It's a good place to practice. Okay, so if you can get this privately, it can be maybe a little bit easier to do this in other arenas of life. It can be a little easier to have better stories or no stories eventually. Just have better assumptions.
Or even if you one time notice, oh, I didn't have a story about that. Oh, good for me. I'm going somewhere, and then next day you're tired, you didn't have your coffee, and somebody's walking slow across the crosswalk, and it's not as easy to not make up a story, I still have to give myself grace, that, and again, it's usually because there's some type of stress, and then once we know we're in a place of stress, and that I'm not going to talk right now to anybody because this is not a good spot. I need 8 hours of sleep or whatever. Yeah.
And that's so true, because it's never about the pedestrian that's crossing slowly, or the driver that's taking their time to turn, or that cut us off. It's always about something else.
Right? It's always about something within.
Yes, it's always about something within.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not the perfect time to go within.
No. And probably not while you're driving. It's probably not the perfect time to, to try and explore that. But then, but maybe keep kind of like have that question of like, what is this really about? And when do I want to explore it?
Yes. And there's so many things. And this is going to be a little different from driving, but I was taking a walk and there was a family that came out and they were in one of those double golf carts, going around the little community. And I'm like, wow, how do people afford that? Those things are expensive. And then I realized that was my mindset about where I feel my money mindset is. And so it had anything to do about them or anything. It's just like, and so it woke me up about my money mindset. And so I had to think about it. I still think about this, about what is it? And, the old thing, against from my mom, don't be selfish. If you're driving to get more money, then that's greed. That's, and so I'm like, whoa, okay. And again, so it is all about, what's coming up for us.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's why there's always lifelong learning. You talk about until we die, we're still finding these things. We're still learning these things. Our mind is there to create filters around the world, to create the patterns, to create the assumptions that we don't go check, so that it doesn't have to go rework our entire understanding of the world every 5 seconds. And if we don't pay attention to those, if we don't get better at listening to those, we end up just kind of defaulting to all of those behaviors. But we can discover all the time some new filter that we didn't know. So this is how I think about money, and I didn't realize that was so ingrained that's how I assumed everybody can or should even think about money, and we can stop to remember, that's not everybody's experience. They're going to have a totally different thing. Maybe a golf cart was a really important thing to them, or they changed whatever it is. It could be a entirely different feeling. But until we can start to notice those, it just feels like the capital T truth until we look at it ourselves and be like, this is just our filter of seeing the world. But it's not easy to know that. It's like wearing sunglasses you don't know are there.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's and that's why we have to add a little humor in our lives, that we can laugh at ourselves, going, wow. And there is a book, and it's really hard to read because it's called, and as I'm looking at it right now, Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me.
Ooh.
And it's how the mind can sometimes just not see beyond your belief that it's the big truth, and this is in this time in 2025. This is weird political scene. There's just And that's why I am choosing to be uncomfortably visible to get my book out there, because I think it's helpful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot of very strong lower letter T truth out there.
Right?
Tiny lower letter T two truths.
Alternate truths, if you will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very hard. And one of the things that, it is greatly missing is compassion.
Mm-hmm.
It's that curiosity to see the other people as like, these are other humans and they're doing the best they can. And whatever's happening on the outside, it's coming from the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if you ever see ever see a mom or dad in a store and you don't feel like they're treating their kid good, because and I've been there this is the way, this is, you don't steal, or I told you weren't going to do that, so we're leaving right now, I don't care if you're crying, and that could look really bad. And so to not judge another parent, or as long as the child's safe, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Very hard. Yes.
Yeah, we were actually recently just flying back from Europe, and there was a child who ended up crying most of the 10 hours. And after a while, at first you're like, okay, like, yeah, I'm not going to be the person who's angry at somebody who has we all have moments where our kid's going to go have a meltdown on a plane. And then after hour 2, you start to be like, I don't think I feel good about this. And then after hour like 5 or 6, you're like, can you just stop them somehow?
Yes.
You're failing at this, and it is hard to remove the story when there's enough trigger, impetus.
Yes.
That is kind of strange too. Like something was definitely wrong. Anyway.
It could be ear pressure.
That's exactly what
so
I
many
thought. I was like,
things.
they probably have a sinus thing. But then we
Exactly.
got all the way off the ground, and they were still throwing a tantrum all the way through baggage claim. And I think later we found out it was like twins, and so maybe they were just going back and forth like coyotes.
Could
so
be.
it just sounded like it was one continual one.
Yes.
Either way, it was an experience, and I think everybody on the plane, even all the parents, were like, okay, this is a lot. This is enough.
I have learned that I have a lot more compassion for that after being the mom with the crying baby on the plane. Like I actually feel really bad for the parents in those moments, because I've been there. I mean, I've been on a international flight where, my 5-month-old at the moment, it was daytime flight, not nighttime flight. So he didn't sleep at all. And so it was me. I still remember the scene. It was me with like a front, pouch carrier, and this other woman across the aisle from at the alley doing the same thing, just kind of like rocking and playing. And we did that for like 7 hours. as long as we didn't have to sit down with our seatbelts on, we were out there because of the fussiness, and the fussiness never went away. And it was like, this is what it is. I'm doing the best I can, and it's daytime, and he's uncomfortable, and that's it.
Yeah. Because on those flights, don't they make it dark so people can sleep, even if
They make it dark? Yes, they make it dark. But if it's daytime, it works at nighttime. But daytime, it was like, so we're gonna stand up and rock and play and and do all these things.
Oh, Christina, that just sounds horrible.
Yeah. So whenever I hear a child, like fussing and crying on planes, like, put my noise canceling headphones on.
Yeah, that's what you need. How do you take care of yourself on those flights?
Exactly.
There is a timing issue though over enough time. So I definitely have the same be compassionate. Everybody's had a hard time like whatever. I'll put in my headphones, and it wasn't that bothersome to me. Just after like 10 hours, you're like, wow, there's got to be something wrong here.
Yeah.
And then it was the same thing actually. Like walking through Europe for so long, we kept having this experience of like people would just. I swear they like lost their peripheral vision. They'd just like walk almost straight into us. We're like, I've been walking on a straight line down the sidewalk the whole time, and they just like drift in. You're like, and the first couple times you're like, fine. Like I'm also looking at all the buildings. I'm taking pictures, whatever. I've probably blocked a couple people, and then after a couple weeks of this, you're like, am I invisible? Is this? is this real? And there are times where you try and put as many mental faculties up as possible, and after enough experiences, you're worn down, and suddenly you're back and yelling in the car.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I wonder if that's a cultural thing. I spent some time in
It
China.
started to feel that way.
Yeah, like that's what we do. We bump, and nobody cares. But then when you're used to it, and we already kind of forgot that we do that. Because like in China, nobody queues up. You go and you go as a crowd into
Italy's the same way.
and if you don't push yourself, which is not what we do, you'll never get to the front.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had some cultural moments of that where we were like trying to take a picture, and then suddenly somebody's like back of their head filters into your view because they're taking the picture right in front of you, and you're like, what? What happened here? But there is that feeling of like, well, I pushed to the front. There was an available spot at the front, so I could push to the front, and that's just
Exactly.
they don't think they're being rude. They think that's just how you do it. Whereas I come from like, oh, that would be very rude, and so we end up like having these conflicts, which they don't even know are conflicts. Again, a huge story in my head and a huge filter from my experience of this is not normal. That's not okay to do, but to them that is normal. That is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those cultural differences, really interesting. Yeah. Oh, the whole being rude. Yeah.
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 Italy is very much like China you push your way through to the front. And so whenever I'm back in Italy, I get in that mode because I know. And so, like I'll, take either, if I can go alone, I'll go alone. If not, I tell my family, I'm like, okay, everybody stay behind me, touch my back because we're going. And so it's literally like elbows up, go.
Yeah. And they smile doing it, right? They kind of like, they're doing this thing with their elbows, and they're laughing, they're smiling, talking to friends. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. When I learned how to do that, I thought, wow, this is pretty interesting. I hope I don't do that in the United States.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. But it is cultural differences. Like it's not rude. It's the only way you're actually going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and in a lot of those countries too, I don't know why they have lines on the road, because no one really pays attention to them.
That too.
Yeah, and somehow they do it without too many accidents. But no.
That's one of the best and weirdest parts about driving in Europe. I kind of enjoy the fact that there's basically no rules. If your car can fit there, you can go there.
Oh, yeah.
It's fine.
Except for the highway. The highway is where the rules are very strict.
Because they go fast?
And even then, though, that's just like kind of social rules.
Because they move fast, and because it is very, so the slow, and fast lanes and anything in between, it is very strict, as in like you're the slowest car, you're on the right, and then the speed has to go up all the way to the left. Like there's no just going whatever speed you want in each lanes. That's when you can find some serious anger from other drivers, because that disrupts traffic, it disrupts safety, it disrupts everything. So if you actually observe the highways, like it's very clean driving through things.
Well, that's good to know.
The second you get to pedestrians, just everywhere, it's fine.
Yeah, there's no pedestrians on the highway, so you're good. But yeah, city driving is all over the place.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, because otherwise you spend all your time in America being like, what are the rules? And what will I get pulled over for? And what does that sign say? Why does it have 50 words on it that I've never seen before? Why am I supposed to read that while I'm driving past this? And then in Europe, they're like, I don't know, you could fit. You're fine.
Lots of possibilities for compassion.
Right? Every day. For other people and ourselves.
And ultimately, it's always for ourselves. If we can give it to ourselves, we can give it to other people. If we can give it to other people, we can give it to ourselves. It's all good training. It's all a way to live a little bit calmer.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, one of my things is I do love not being visible. And maybe because I came from a family of 7 other siblings. And so I grew up and it was just safer to be hidden. And so I'm doing some marketing for this book, and it says, you got to be visible. And so I'm going through that uncomfortable thing of, okay, I'd love to get this out there because I think it has a good message.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely agree. It's a good message, and thank you for joining here to go give some of that so that we
Yes.
can all share some of this. I think it's a good message. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, both just to have the stories that you have in the book as well as come out and promote it and talk about it, because it is important and it is hard to be seen.
Yes. Yes. So on that note, since you are trying to be visible, where can people find you and the book?
Sure. So my website is actually my name, ConnieWarden.com. And the book can be found on Amazon. And I would love if anybody got some good results, if they would leave a review, because it's always helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So we do have one last question, which is, what is your definition of authenticity? Especially in those moments when you're driving and you're angry.
Yeah, I was actually just recently asked this question, and a lot of people answered. And I wanted to bring into the authenticity is being okay with the negative aspects of your humanity, along with the things that are very, very beautiful about being human. We all have such a basic goodness. We all have inner wisdom. And we all have the desire that there may be jealousy or hatred. Those are all there. And if you can have compassion around that and know that you're all those things, I think that can be very authentic.
That's beautiful.
I really like that definition.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Connie.
Thank you
for
so
joining us,
much,
Connie.
Christina and Alex.
Everybody go
thank you for
check out
joining.
Speeding to Compassion.
Yes. And think
Thank
of
you.
Connie the next time you get angry in the car.
How do you
In a
really
good
want to
way.
handle
In a good
that?
way. Don't be angry.
How
at
do you
Connie.
really want to handle it? Exactly. What's the story of what's
Yes.
happening there?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.